Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to another chat with Matt. So we're recording this mid-June in 2021. If you're a football or sports fan, soccer fan for our US colleagues, the Euros is on. So it's a big football tournament that's happening. We're midway through the tournament now, and I thought, why not bring a bit of a sporty theme into our chat? But as always, the focus of these chats is to give you some insights, to bring an expert to talk to you about these insights, and it has to be relevant to what we're going through right now. So I am delighted to welcome back Mr. Mark Smith, friend and colleague. How are you?
I'm great, thanks, Matt. Always good, and been running on the mountains with my dogs this morning, so I'm feeling fit.
I've seen that on Strava. It's looking, I mean, the photos are just stunning. So very jealous, very jealous. Beautiful backdrop that you've got there.
Yeah, I'm privileged to live in the countryside.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And for those of you who don't know, Mark, the countryside is in South Africa. So you can imagine the scenery is just breathtaking. So you're very lucky indeed. Now, Mark, we talked a little bit about, I introduced this by talking about the Euros and the football's on. So I'm going to do something a bit different today. I'm going to put you on the spot. Think about it as a spot kick, which, by the way, as an Englishman, it's probably not a good idea to talk about spot kicks or penalties because it never really ends that well. But I'm going to do it anyway. So what I'm going to do is ask you three questions-ish. And the area is going to be related to leadership because this is your area of expertise and leadership as we come through a pandemic. You up for that?
I'm definitely up for that, Matt. It's a subject I'm always keen to debate.
All right, good. So as a leader, what should my real focus be as we start to progress through and come out the other side of a pandemic?
Yeah, that's a great question, Matt. I think there's been a stark realization by a lot of people that we have a leadership crisis, that the people who we have been looking to globally haven't always had the answers and haven't forethought where to take a country or where to take a people from the perspective of their health, safety, security, as well as from a technological perspective. Obviously, the world is going at a rate in terms of being able to help the people in the country to keep up with the change. In fact, for me, leaders ought to be getting the advice from the experts and then getting out ahead of it and leading the change and steering and showing a vision.
So leading the change is an interesting sort of thread that you've talked there, because we've talked constantly over the last 18 months that we've been in periods of change. And I guess as we're starting to emerge from the pandemic, we're not all there yet, it would be fair to say. We are still going through a moment of deep change in many respects. What do you think are the key attributes of a leader during this intense period of continued change?
Yeah, for me, that's a great question. Having a finger on the pulse of what's really going on at grassroots and really acknowledging what people are going through, I think is key. I don't think we realize the amount of trauma that this particular situation has caused. People haven't been able to see their loved ones. People have lost loved ones and haven't been able to be at their bedside and at their passing. People have been separated from family members, and I think the fallout from that is still to be felt.
Yeah, I share that view actually, because I think when you get a seismic event that's happened like this, quite often the ripples of that event can be felt for many years to come. So if I am a leader, and if you are taking note, by the way, this would technically be my third question. So I might ask you a few more yet. Don't worry about that. If I'm a leader and I'm dealing with these ripples of this seismic event, what advice are you going to give as an executive coach and leadership expert? What advice are you going to give to these leaders to be watching out for?
Yeah, for me, it's more watching in for, who am I? How am I showing up as a leader in terms of being grounded, being certain, being able to guide, whether it's an organization or whether it's a family, a community, or a country, so that so that there's more certainty. I think that there's a lot of uncertainty in the world. Well, if I speak to my son and his generation, there's a real, it feels to me like a wobble that I didn't have when I was in my early 20s. I was kind of certain, of my place in the world. And I think what leaders need to do is create some certainty. And we spoke about this being a transformational leadership conversation. And for me, that's what leading change is. It's about transforming the reality of the people within the organization, community, whatever, consciously and deliberately, and providing a pathway forward so that people can calm down and can feel secure that there is a place and that there is a way forward.
I think that's a really vital point that you're making, because I saw a stat, and I don't know the exact source, so apologies for that over the next year, globally, approximately 40% or up to 40% of people might look to change their job because of realizations or paradigm shifts or that inflection point that they've had during the pandemic over the course of the year. So I think what would be interesting is if that's true. I mean, that's a big shift of people. And one of the key challenges for businesses is to look after key talent.
Yeah.
What do you do as a leader to try and make sure you retain those key talented individuals within your organization?
The one word that comes up for me is freedom. The people who are smart, capable, and committed in an organization probably also realize that they could be doing other things and diversify, for example, to create a second income stream and set up online businesses. And typically it's been called moonlighting and it's been taboo. And I think leaders who are forward thinking need to realize that there are online opportunities and people do want to explore and experiment with ways to create value, purpose, as well as create income. So they need to let the reins loose and give them the opportunity to grow, to take aspects of what they've learned without the organization and then bring it back into the organization to stimulate ideas and to create more of an organic organization, an organism within the organization that grows and expands and develops, rather than the typical 1950s structured left brain. This is how it is. This is the way we've always done it, so we'll keep on doing it that way. I think there needs to be a lot more flexibility.
So almost engender in a spirit of autonomy, entrepreneurialism, because if you allow that freedom, as you were talking about there, then inevitably that thinking and that called the right brain thinking, the organization, the team members, the wider company, and indeed the customers, the important people after all, are the ones who are going to benefit from that.
Yeah, and of course I'm speaking to people all of the time and noticing there seems to still be this what can I call it? It's not draconian, but it's quite rigid leadership style. I was speaking to a client the other day, and her and her husband are thinking of emigrating to Canada. And one of the factors is that she reports to her CEO and she reports to her financial director, and they don't seem to be able to find enough of a vision, a clarity, a leadership impetus, a real care for the people in order to really lead them in a healthy way to a better place. They seem to be much more in a mode of worrying about the organization, focusing on the fact that sales have dropped and what can we do, and all about the numbers and the task driven. Whereas in my view, they've got so many talented, incredibly creative people who've grown up in the organization. They could step out of the way and say, what do you think? How could you lead your department, your area into a better place in terms of health of the people, health of the numbers, whatever it happens to be, flexible working arrangements, etc., in order to stimulate people to want to. And you know as well as I do from the case of the human brain, from neuroscience, etc., that we're wired for threat 70%. So we have to really work hard at creating that toward response in the brain where people are motivated, engaged, and driven to succeed. And people are too smart to put up with those rigid measures at this stage in life.
So the adage, look after your people and they'll look after you, they'll look after your customers. And just a caveat on a point I made a moment ago, that the customers are the most important thing. In the outcome, the customers are, because we should be doing what we need to do through our services and our value to deliver value back to our customers. My point was they're not the only most important thing. Our people are vital. So if we do look after our people, then they will look after our customers, and everybody is set to gain from that. Yeah,
I've got a couple of books here on leadership, as it happens.
It's not one that you've read, Mark, by the way. We don't allow plugging on Chat with Matt.
That's coming. Legacy, 15 Lessons in Leadership, What the All Blacks Can Teach Us About the Business of Life, James Kerr. And the All Blacks have I don't know whether it's a practice or whether it's a value, but they sweep the shed. So humility is something in their leadership. They're not too grand to get down to grassroots and to do what needs to be done. So that's one thing for me. Another thing is diversity. We need to recognize that there are people from diverse backgrounds, from the gender diversity issue as well, and when it comes to organizations being healthy in the future, I think they'll look completely different. I think we'll see many more women in leadership. We'll see many more diverse teams of people operating globally, to create value and to drive organizations forward remotely. And one of the things that one of my clients in India has noticed is they no longer have need for their offices because of the pandemic, and everybody's working from home and everybody's got a laptop and they've got Wi-Fi, which the company had the foresight. That was a forward-thinking leader. He provided everybody with their own ability to operate from home before the pandemic. Right. But now they can employ people all over the world. They don't have to only employ people in their catchment area. So there are huge opportunities that are going to happen for organizations to go global, with the willingness to really let the people in the organization steer and guide as far as the culture of the organization is concerned.
And I think when we talked earlier about a seismic shift in years from now, for my children's children and their children and beyond, I think they'll look back into the early part of the 2020s as being a shift in a number of ways, not least the way we work, the way we collaborate, the way we think about, the work-life balance and so many other areas. I think it's going to be remembered for a lot of things. So as we come to the end of our chat today, it's really insightful, Mark, and I appreciate your time again. Give that one piece of advice. If you're an aspiring leader or a new leader, and you're leading people through this change, what one thing would you say? Really concentrate on this.
Be bold. Take charge.
Nice. Seems like a good way that we end our chat today, that if you are a leader, you need to be bold, take charge of the situation. Let's remember the things that Mark covered earlier around really knowing your people, high levels of empathy, but giving people the freedom, the autonomy to operate and think like individuals. It's an essential part of growth in high performing teams. So Mark, as always, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Matt.
You look after yourself. Go on.
Thank you. Well, one other word is just stimulated from what you just said is trust your people as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Be bold, be trustful. Thank you for taking the time to listen in and watch today. And Mark, I appreciate your time. As always, enjoy those runs in the hills with your dog.
That's a given.
Stay safe. We'll see you soon on another Chat with Matt. Thank you.